Devonshire, October 1817. The autumn wind tore at the cliffs of Thornby Hall with the fury of a betrayed lover, sending salt spray against ancient windows where Lady Georgiana Fairfax stood motionless, staring at the letter that would seal her fate. 6 months had passed since Marcus died. 6 months since the dueling pistol had freed her from a marriage that had been nothing but elegant torture. Society called her the devoted widow, praised her dignified mourning. None of them knew the truth. None understood that her trembling came not from grief, but from the phantom sensation of his fingers around her throat. Now his father lay dying 3 floors above, demanding her presence within the hour. Whatever he wanted, it would not be kindness. The Thornby men did not know how to be kind. If stories of courage born from unimaginable pain move your heart, subscribe now and stay with us. You will not want to miss what happens next. Mrs. Dalton, the housekeeper who had served the family for 30 years, pressed a cup of strong tea into Georgiana's hands. "You'll need your strength, my lady. His lordship has been asking for you since dawn, and for Lord Piers as well." Georgiana's hand trembled. "Piers Thornby is here." "Arrived last night from Plymouth, my lady. Came straight from his ship." Mrs. Dalton's voice dropped. "He doesn't look much like a lord anymore, more like a common sailor." She had met Piers Thornby exactly twice, once at her wedding to Marcus 3 years ago, where he had appeared in naval uniform with ice in his eyes, and once at Marcus's funeral, where he had stood apart from the family, silent as stone. Both times she had been struck by how different he seemed from his older brother. Where Marcus had been all polished cruelty wrapped in silk, Piers had seemed raw, uncomfortable, eager to escape back to the sea. The Earl's chambers occupied the entire northern corner, with windows overlooking both sea and gardens. Through the doorway, Georgiana could hear raspy breathing and a low male voice she did not recognize. "Enter," the Earl commanded, his voice thin but still autocratic. Georgiana stepped inside and understood why Piers no longer looked like a lord. 8 years at sea had transformed him completely. His skin was bronze darker than any gentleman's should be. His hands bore rope calluses, and a thin white scar traced his left cheekbone. He stood by the window in shirt sleeves, no coat, no cravat, his posture that of a man ready to fight or flee. When his eyes met hers, Georgiana saw recognition, not of her face, but of something deeper, the way wounded animals recognize each other. "Lady Georgiana," the Earl rasped, "come closer, and Piers, stop lurking like a deckhand." Piers did not move. "Say what you need to say, father. I have a ship waiting in Plymouth." "You'll not be returning to any ship. You are the heir now. Marcus is gone, and you will take your place as Earl of Thornby." "I never wanted this title," Piers replied flatly. "I left to escape it. I left to escape him." The Earl's face contorted. "Marcus was my firstborn. I raised him to be strong." "You raised him to be a tyrant," Piers interrupted. "You taught him that power meant dominance, that women were possessions. When I tried to speak against it, you called me soft. So I left. I chose the sea over this poisoned legacy." Georgiana stood frozen. In 3 years as a Thornby wife, she had never heard anyone speak against Marcus, never heard anyone acknowledge what he truly was. "Nevertheless, you will inherit," the Earl said, "and you will marry Lady Georgiana immediately, within the week." The words hung like dropped stones. "What?" Georgiana whispered. "Impossible," Piers said simultaneously. "She is my brother's widow." "Necessary," the Earl interrupted. "Your grandfather, the man who built this family's fortune, included a peculiar clause in his will. If the primary heir dies without legitimate issue, the second son may only inherit if he unites the bloodlines by marrying the widow. It was his way of ensuring family loyalty." Piers's jaw clenched. "That is medieval, barbaric." "It is legally binding. I have consulted with our solicitors. The clause is ironclad. You marry Lady Georgiana within 1 week of my death, or the entire estate passes to your cousin Bertram. Then let it pass," Piers said coldly. "I never wanted any of it." "And what of Lady Georgiana?" The Earl's eyes fixed on her. "Without my protection, without the marriage settlement, she will be cast out with nothing. Her own family disowned her when she married Marcus. They will not take her back now that her reputation is in tatters. The cruelty stole her breath. He was right. Her father had forced her into marriage with Marcus when she was 19. When she tried to return home after the first time Marcus struck her, her father had turned her away. "I am not asking," the Earl continued. "I am dying, and this is my final command. Marry within the week, or I will ensure the solicitors execute the alternative provisions immediately. Both of you will be left with nothing." "Why?" Georgiana managed. "Why force this?" Something like sorrow crossed the old man's face. "Because I failed Marcus. I created the monster he became, and I failed you. I saw the bruises you tried to hide, heard the sounds at night, knew what he was doing. I did nothing." His breathing grew ragged. "I thought perhaps if you remarried, if Piers took responsibility for you, I could die knowing I had not left you entirely unprotected. Piers is nothing like Marcus. He takes after his mother, kind where Marcus was cruel." "How considerate," Piers said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Using us both to ease your conscience on your deathbed. You have until my death to decide. The physicians give me 3 days. Marry each other and inherit everything, or refuse and lose it all." The Earl's physician appeared, indicating the interview was over. Georgiana fled, mind reeling, chest too tight to breathe. She heard Piers's footsteps behind her, but did not stop until she reached the morning room. "Lady Georgiana, wait." "Do not," she said sharply, whirling to face him. "Do not tell me it will be acceptable. Do not tell me we must do our duty. Do not tell me any of the pretty lies men tell women when they are being forced into cages." Piers stopped several feet away, hands raised in peace. Up close, she could see more differences from Marcus. His eyes were lighter, more grey than blue, holding none of Marcus's calculating coldness. But the shape of his jaw, the line of his nose, it was enough like his brother to make her skin crawl. "I was going to say," Piers replied carefully, "that I understand if you cannot bear the thought of marrying another Thornby. God knows I can barely stand the name myself. If you choose to refuse, I will ensure you are provided for somehow. I have prize money saved from naval actions. It is not much, but why would you do that?" Georgiana interrupted, suspicious. "You barely know me." "Because Marcus was my brother, and I knew exactly what he was." Piers's voice roughened. "I was 16 when I first understood the kind of man he would become. He was cruel to animals, cruel to servants, cruel to anyone weaker. I tried to tell my father, but I was the second son, the spare, and Marcus was the golden heir. No one listened. He turned away, staring at the wild Devon coastline. When I heard he was engaged, I requested an extended naval tour. I could not bear to watch him destroy another person. I am sorry I did not stay. I am sorry I left you to face him alone." The apology, so unexpected and sincere, cracked something in Georgiana's carefully maintained composure. "You could not have stopped him." "Perhaps not, but I should have tried harder." He faced her again. "I will not force you into this marriage. We can both walk away." "And I never wanted to be dependent on anyone again," Georgiana replied quietly. "But if I refuse, where do I go? I have no money of my own. I would be forced to seek employment as a governess, always one mistake away from destitution." Her hands clenched. "I despise that your father is right. I despise that marriage to you is my only path to security." "Then let us be honest with each other," Piers said, voice turning businesslike. "If we must do this, let us establish clear terms. This would be a marriage of convenience, nothing more. You would have your own chambers, your own income, complete independence. I would spend half the year at sea. I cannot give up the Navy entirely. When I am at Thornby Hall, we would maintain separate lives. Otherwise, we would be strangers who happen to share a surname," Georgiana finished. "Exactly." He looked relieved. "And if you ever wish to take a lover, once we have produced an heir, I would not object." The casual mention made Georgiana's stomach turn. "I have no interest in lovers, or in—" She could not say the words, could not speak aloud the act that had been forced upon her so many times. Understanding dawned in Piers's eyes. Of course. Forgive me." They stood in silence, two strangers contemplating a future neither wanted, but both needed. "If we do this," Georgiana said finally, "I have conditions. You will never enter my chambers without invitation. You will never touch me in anger. You will never strike me or restrain me or—" Her voice broke. "You will never make me feel as he made me feel." "I swear it," Piers said immediately, voice intense. "On my honor as an officer, on my life, I swear I will never harm you. I would sooner cut off my own hands than raise them against a woman." Something in his vehemence convinced her. Perhaps it was foolish, but the alternative was destitution. "Very well," she said, "I will marry you, Lord Piers, but understand, it is a business arrangement only. You need a wife to claim your inheritance. I need security, that is all." "Agreed," Piers replied, extending his hand. After hesitation, Georgiana shook it. His hand was warm, calloused, steady. Nothing like Marcus's cold, smooth fingers that had squeezed too tight, held too long, hurt deliberately. She pulled away quickly before panic could set in. "I will inform my father," Piers said. "The wedding can be Saturday." "One wedding is much like another," Georgiana replied hollowly. "The day matters little." As Piers left, Georgiana sank into the nearest chair. In 4 days she would become Lady Thornby again. She would walk down the aisle, speak vows, sign papers giving a man legal ownership of her life. She told herself it would be different this time. Piers had promised kindness, distance, safety. But Marcus had promised those things too in the beginning. The wedding took place Saturday morning, rain streaming down chapel windows. The Earl, too weak to attend, lingered just long enough to receive word the ceremony was complete before surrendering to death that same afternoon. Georgiana stood in her late mother-in-law's wedding gown, hastily altered, and felt nothing. No grief for the old man who had manipulated them, no hope for the marriage, no fear either, though perhaps that would come. For now, she existed in a strange hollow space as the vicar droned through the ceremony. "Do you, Lady Georgiana Fairfax, take this man—" "I do," she interrupted, wanting it finished. When Piers's turn came, he spoke the vows in a clear, steady voice, holding no emotion. They might have been signing a shipping contract rather than binding themselves for life. The ring Piers slipped onto her finger had belonged to his mother, simple gold set with small sapphires, far less ostentatious than the enormous diamond Marcus had given her. "You may kiss the bride," the vicar said. Piers leaned forward carefully, giving her time to pull away. When she remained frozen, he pressed the briefest kiss to her forehead instead of her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. His eyes met hers with understanding. As soon as the ceremony concluded, Piers went to his father's chambers. The old man lay propped against pillows, breathing shallow. "It is done," Piers said quietly. "We are married." The Earl's eyes opened with surprising clarity. "Good." The solicitors witnessed it. They did. "Everything is legal." Satisfaction crossed the dying man's face. "Then I can rest, Piers, be better than I was." "I will try," Piers said, and meant it. The Earl closed his eyes and died within the hour. The wedding breakfast was grim. Neither bride nor groom had appetite. They sat at opposite ends of the long dining table, the space between them filled with silence. "I must travel to London tomorrow," Piers said. "Estate matters require immediate attention." "I expect I shall be gone at least a fortnight." "Of course," Georgiana replied, relieved. "You are welcome to accompany me. The London house is yours now." The thought of London, of facing the ton's scrutiny, made the air feel thin. "I prefer to remain here. I am not yet ready for society." "As you wish." Piers hesitated. "I have instructed Mr. Crawford, my solicitor, to establish accounts in your name. You will have full access to household funds and your own quarterly income. If you wish to redecorate, you need not ask my permission." The generosity surprised her. Marcus had controlled every penny. "That is uncommonly trusting." "It is your home," Piers said simply. "You should be comfortable in it." After the meal, Piers retreated to his study. Georgiana climbed to the east wing chambers that had been hers during her marriage to Marcus, only to find Mrs. Dalton waiting. "My lady, I took the liberty of preparing the mistress's chambers in the west wing for you, the ones that belonged to Lord Piers's mother." The housekeeper's eyes were apologetic. "I thought perhaps you might prefer rooms with no memories attached." Georgiana could have kissed her. "Thank you, Mrs. Dalton. Yes, I should like that very much." The West Wing chambers were magnificent. Unlike the dark rooms Marcus had chosen for her, these were filled with light. The bedroom overlooked the sea, with windows catching afternoon sun. The walls were papered in soft blue and cream, and the furniture was delicate rather than imposing. "Lord Piers's chambers are in the opposite wing," Mrs. Dalton said carefully. "He requested rooms as far from yours as possible. He said he did not wish to disturb you." That night, alone in her new chambers, Georgiana stood before the windows and watched the autumn storm batter the coastline. This was her life now, a stranger's wife in name only, wealthy and titled and utterly alone. She should have felt trapped. Instead, she felt the first stirring of something that might have been freedom. The fortnight of Piers's absence passed in strange liminal space. Georgiana spent days exploring parts of Thornby Hall she had never dared visit during Marcus's lifetime, the library with its maritime texts, the conservatory where his mother had grown orchids. She also began to learn the truth about Marcus's death. It happened by accident. Georgiana had been searching the library when she discovered a loose panel behind one of the bookcases. Behind it, carefully hidden, was a leather-bound journal with Marcus's distinctive handwriting. Her hands shook as she carried it to the window seat. Part of her screamed to throw it in the fire unread. Another part desperately needed to understand the man who had tormented her. The entries began innocuously: estate management notes, complaints about his father. But as Georgiana read deeper, the true nature of Marcus's thoughts emerged like rot beneath polished wood. November 1814. Married the Fairfax girl today. Pretty enough, sufficiently cowed by her father's demands. She will serve as a brood mare. Father insists on an heir. Bile rose in Georgiana's throat, but she forced herself to continue. January 1815. The wife is proving stubborn. She refused me last night, claimed she was unwell. I taught her the consequences. She has not refused since. Important to establish dominance early. Her vision blurred with tears, but still she read on through page after page of casual cruelty, of calculated abuse, of Marcus's cold analysis of how to break another human being's spirit. Then she reached entries from spring 1817, just months before his death. May 1817. Piers intends to return to England this summer. Must ensure he does not stay long. He has always been soft, always questioned father's methods. If he discovers how I manage my household, he may make trouble. Better he remain at sea, far from Thornby affairs. Marcus had feared his brother. June 1817. Piers plans to spend time at Thornby Hall. Unacceptable. I have been considering my options. Young Viscount Hartley has become an irritation. His gambling debts to me are substantial, and he has been making noise about seeking forgiveness. Worse, he has been asking pointed questions about my marriage, about Georgiana's declining health. The fool fancies himself some sort of knight-errant. A duel would solve multiple problems. I can provoke Hartley easily. His temper is legendary. Killing him will eliminate both his debts and his moral posturing. And the spectacle will remind Piers that Thornby men are not to be trifled with. Georgiana dropped the journal, heart pounding. Marcus had not fought that duel to defend honor. He had manufactured it to eliminate a creditor and send a warning to his brother. But something had gone wrong. She snatched up the journal, finding the final entries. July 1817. The duel is arranged for tomorrow. Hartley believes I insulted his sister, a useful fabrication. I have spent weeks preparing, practicing at dawn. My aim is steady. By next week the young fool will be dead, my debts dissolved, and I shall be celebrated. Piers arrives next month. Perhaps by then I will have convinced Georgiana to produce an heir. One more attempt should do it. She has been unusually resilient, but everyone breaks eventually. There were no more entries. The next day, Marcus had died in the duel, shot through the heart by the same young Viscount he had planned to murder. Georgiana sat frozen. Marcus had not been killed defending honor. He had been killed attempting premeditated murder, struck down by the very violence he had tried to wield. The irony was almost poetic. But more troubling was what the journal revealed about Marcus's relationship with his brother. He had feared Piers, had considered him enough of a threat to warrant violent warnings, which meant Piers truly was different from Marcus. Different enough that Marcus himself had recognized it, had seen it as weakness rather than strength. Georgiana hid the journal in her chambers, uncertain what to do with this terrible knowledge. Part of her wanted to burn it. Another part, the part that still woke screaming, wanted the world to know what he truly was. She was still wrestling with the decision when Piers returned from London. Piers arrived Wednesday evening, travel-worn and exhausted. Georgiana encountered him in the entrance hall, and for a moment, seeing his profile in lamplight, her breath caught. The resemblance to Marcus was strongest in dim light, in the angle of his jaw and set of his shoulders. She must have made some sound because Piers turned sharply, expression shifting to concern when he saw her frozen on the stairs. "Lady Georgiana, forgive me. I did not mean to startle you." "You did not," she lied, forcing herself down the remaining steps. "Welcome home, my lord. I trust your business concluded satisfactorily." "As satisfactorily as such matters ever do." He studied her. "You look well, better than when I left." "I have been sleeping more soundly." Another lie. The nightmares had not ceased, but they had changed. "I am glad to hear it." Piers gestured toward the dining room. "Have you eaten? I am famished, and I confess I have missed Mrs. Dalton's cooking." They dined together with less awkwardness than before, though conversation remained stilted. Piers spoke of London, the solicitors, the investments he was considering. Georgiana spoke of Thornby Hall, the repairs she had ordered, the letters she had received from distant relations offering condolences she did not want. It was all perfectly civil, perfectly proper, and perfectly hollow. "I must tell you something," Georgiana said abruptly, setting down her wine glass. "I found a journal, Marcus's journal, hidden in the library." Piers's expression shifted, becoming very still. "What manner of journal?" "The kind that reveals exactly what sort of man he was." Georgiana's hands clenched. "The kind that proves his death was not the honorable affair society believes. He provoked that duel deliberately, intending to murder Viscount Hartley. He wrote about it, planned it, practiced for it." "Why?" Piers's voice was carefully neutral. "Multiple reasons. Hartley owed him gambling debts Marcus wanted eliminated, but more—" Georgiana met his eyes. "Hartley had been asking questions about me, about my health, my withdrawn manner. Marcus wrote that the boy fancied himself some sort of knight-errant. The duel would eliminate both the debt and the questions, and it would send you a warning about what happens to those who question Thornby authority." Piers stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The muscles in his jaw worked. "My God, he was going to kill that boy to silence questions about you and intimidate me." "It seems so." Georgiana watched him carefully. "The journal also contains other things, details about our marriage, about what he did to me, about how he calculated every cruelty, every hurt." Her voice broke. "Every time he broke me down, he wrote about it like a scientist documenting an experiment." "Burn it," Piers said immediately, voice rough with suppressed rage. The tendons in his neck stood out like cords. "Burn it tonight. No one should ever read such filth." "I thought the same at first," Georgiana admitted. "But part of me wants the world to know. I want them to understand that I am not the grieving widow they imagine." Piers returned to the table, leaning forward with his hands braced on the back of his chair. "If you reveal that journal, society will blame you, not him. They will say you must have driven him to such behavior. They will question what you did to deserve his treatment. You know this is true." He was right, and she hated it. "So his reputation remains intact while I am left with the scars he gave me?" "No," Piers said quietly. "His reputation dies if that is what you need. But we do it carefully, strategically. We do not give the ton your pain for their entertainment." Something in his words, the respect in them, the understanding, made Georgiana's throat tighten. "You would help me destroy your brother's legacy?" "He was no brother of mine, not in any way that matters." The words came out hard as flint. "Marcus was a blight on the Thornby name. If you wish to excise that blight, I will hand you the blade myself." They did not speak of it again that night, but the next morning Piers requested Georgiana's presence in his study. "I have been thinking," Piers said without preamble, "about the best way to manage this situation. We cannot simply burn the journal and pretend none of it happened. You will never heal fully while society continues to venerate your abuser. But we also cannot hand Marcus's private writings to the scandal sheets." Georgiana seated herself. "What do you propose?" "A measured revelation. We begin with whispers, strategic words to certain people, questions raised about inconsistencies in the duel's narrative. The ton loves a mystery. We give them breadcrumbs, not the whole loaf. Then, when enough doubt exists, we release carefully selected portions of the journal. Enough to shatter Marcus's reputation, not enough to humiliate you." "You have given this considerable thought," Georgiana observed. "I spent 8 years in the Navy learning strategy." A wry smile crossed Piers's face. "War is not so different from society. Both require understanding your enemy and choosing your battles wisely." "And you consider society the enemy?" "I consider any system that protects men like Marcus while condemning their victims to be an enemy worth fighting." The words were so vehement, so heartfelt that Georgiana found herself believing him. "Very well, I am at your disposal, my lord." What followed was an education in subtle social manipulation. Piers drafted letters to key figures, a mention here of Marcus's gambling debts, a question there about the timing of the duel, a gentle suggestion that perhaps Viscount Hartley's sister had never been insulted at all. Within a month, whispers began to circulate. Within 2 months, former friends of Marcus began to remember incidents they had previously dismissed. His temper at cards, his harsh treatment of servants, the way his wife had grown increasingly withdrawn. Lady Cordelia Ashton, a society beauty who had once set her cap at Piers before he fled to the Navy, paid an unexpected call to Thornby Hall in December, arriving with her brother the Earl of Ashton and several other prominent members of the ton. They descended like crows, dressed in expensive silks and carrying the latest gossip like weapons. Georgiana and Piers received them in the formal drawing room, presenting a united front, though tension coiled in Georgiana's stomach. "Lord Piers, Lady Georgiana, how kind of you to receive us," Lady Cordelia purred. "We simply could not resist calling after hearing such fascinating rumors about the late Lord Marcus." "Rumors have a way of flourishing in the absence of truth," Piers replied smoothly. "What particular fiction has captured your attention, Lady Cordelia?" "Oh, nothing so definite as fiction," the Earl of Ashton interjected. "Merely questions. Several gentlemen from Marcus's club have come forward to say he held substantial gambling debts before his death, debts that seem to have been quietly settled after the duel. Financial matters are hardly suitable conversation for mixed company," Georgiana said, voice level despite her racing heart. "Indeed not," another guest, Lady Stratford, agreed. "Though one does wonder why a gentleman of Marcus's standing would fight a duel over an insult to Viscount Hartley's sister, when the young lady was never at the event in question." The room went very still. "Whatever do you mean?" Lady Cordelia leaned forward, eyes glittering. "I mean," Lady Stratford said with obvious satisfaction, "that Miss Hartley was visiting her aunt in Bath during the entire week when Marcus supposedly witnessed the insult. She was nowhere near London. The Hartley family has confirmed it." Shocked murmurs rippled through the guests. Piers and Georgiana exchanged brief glances. "How extraordinary," Piers said mildly. "Perhaps my brother was mistaken about the details. Or perhaps," Lady Cordelia suggested, voice sharp, "there was no insult at all. Perhaps the duel was provoked for entirely different reasons." "Such as?" Georgiana asked, though she knew exactly where this was leading. "Such as a desire to eliminate a rival," the Earl of Ashton said bluntly, "or to cover up financial improprieties, or to silence someone who knew damaging information." "These are serious accusations to make against a dead man," Piers said, voice taking on an edge of warning. I suggest we all take care not to speak from ignorance. Then perhaps, Lady Cordelia said sweetly, you could enlighten us from knowledge. You were his brother, after all. It was a trap, beautifully laid. If Piers defended Marcus, he would be lying, and the Tun would eventually discover it. If he condemned Marcus, he would be violating the sacred code of family loyalty. Piers stood, expression hardening into something Georgiana had never seen before, the face of a naval officer who had made difficult decisions in battle. My brother, he said clearly, was not the man society believed him to be. He was charming in public and cruel in private. He gambled recklessly and treated those dependent on him with casual brutality. His death in that duel was not the honorable sacrifice of a gentleman defending a lady's reputation. It was the predictable end of a man who lived violently and died the same way. Gasps echoed through the room. Lord Piers, Lady Cordelia breathed, to speak so of your own brother. My brother is dead, Piers interrupted, voice like iron. The truth of what he was cannot hurt him now, but the lies that have been told about him continue to hurt those he victimized. I will not allow his false reputation to stand at the expense of people who deserve justice. What people? The Earl demanded. Who has accused Marcus of wrongdoing? This was the moment. Georgiana stood, drawing every eye in the room. I have, she said quietly. I accused him, and I will continue to accuse him, because for 3 years of marriage, Marcus Thornby made my life a carefully calculated hell. The silence that followed was absolute. Lady Stratford broke it first. My dear girl, what are you saying? I am saying that my first husband was a monster who hid behind charm and good breeding. I am saying he beat me, degraded me, terrorized me, and forced me to smile through it all lest I bring scandal on his precious family name. Georgiana's voice grew stronger. I am saying that when he died in that duel, my first thought was not grief, but relief. And I am saying that I will no longer pretend to mourn a man who destroyed every ounce of joy I might have known. Why should we believe such claims when you had years to speak and said nothing? Lady Cordelia challenged. Because women who speak of abuse are called liars and attention seekers, Piers said, moving to stand beside Georgiana. Because society prefers comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Because men like Marcus know they can act with impunity as long as they maintain the right appearance. He reached into his coat and withdrew a slim packet of papers. But I have proof. Excerpts from Marcus's private journal detailing exactly what he did and why. I will be sharing copies with certain newspapers, along with sworn testimony from servants who witnessed his behavior. You cannot be serious, the Earl said, face pale. To destroy your own brother's reputation, the scandal will touch you as well. It will damage the Thornby name irreparably. Good, Piers said flatly. Let it burn. Let every family who values reputation over decency see what happens when cruelty is tolerated for the sake of appearances. Marcus was my brother by blood, but I repudiate any other connection, and anyone who questions my wife's truth will answer to me. It was a declaration of war against the Tun itself. The guests departed shortly after, their carriages rattling down the drive carrying the scandal that would consume London society for months. Are you well? Piers asked quietly, once they were alone. I am not certain, Georgiana admitted. But for now, yes, better than I have been in years. We can leave England if it becomes unbearable. I have naval contacts in the Americas, in India. We could start fresh. Georgiana turned to look at him, this unexpected husband who had destroyed his own reputation to protect hers. Why did you do it? You could have maintained distance, let me face the consequences alone. Because you are my wife, Piers said simply. Not in the way you were Marcus's possession, but in the way that matters. You are my responsibility, my partner, my friend, I hope. I would not ask you to face this battle alone when I helped plan it. Your friend, Georgiana repeated, testing the word. Yes, I think you are. I think you might be the only true friend I have ever had. Something flickered in Piers's eyes. Disappointment, perhaps, or resignation. But he only nodded. Then that is enough. The scandal broke across London like a storm surge. The excerpts from Marcus's journal appeared in the Morning Post and London Chronicle simultaneously, carefully edited to convey truth without subjecting Georgiana to unnecessary exposure. The Tun's reaction was predictably divided. Half condemned them for airing private family matters. The other half, particularly among younger ladies and those with difficult marriages, privately celebrated the courage it took to speak truth to power. Letters poured into Thornby Hall. Some were vicious, accusing Georgiana of slandering a dead man's name. Others were heartbreaking, women sharing their own stories of abuse, thanking her for making them feel less alone. One letter in particular stood out. It came from a Mrs. Hannah Prescott, formerly a kitchen maid named Annie. "My lady, 20 years ago, I worked in the kitchens at Thornby Hall. Lord Marcus assaulted me in the stables when I was 14. When I refused his advances, he beat me so severely I could not walk for a week. The old Earl dismissed me without references, and I have spent these 20 years working in positions far beneath my abilities, always afraid that speaking the truth would destroy what little I had left. Reading about your courage has given me strength. I am writing to offer my testimony." Georgiana read the letter aloud to Piers, watching tears gather in his eyes. "My God," he said hoarsely, "she survived. All these years I thought, I feared the worst." "She is offering to testify," Georgiana said, "to add her voice to mine. If she does, if other women come forward, Marcus's reputation will not simply be damaged, it will be obliterated." "Is that what you want?" Piers asked carefully. "Complete destruction?" Georgiana thought seriously. "What I want is for no other woman to suffer what I suffered, what Mrs. Prescott suffered. If destroying Marcus's memory achieves that, if it makes even one father think twice before forcing his daughter into marriage with a charming monster, then yes, I want complete destruction. Then we will give it to you," Piers promised. They invited Mrs. Prescott to Thornby Hall, treating her with the respect she had been denied 20 years earlier. Other women came forward as well. A governess Marcus had terrorized, a distant cousin he had cornered at a house party, a shopkeeper's daughter he had ruined and abandoned. Each story added to the damning portrait of a man who had used his privilege as a weapon. By March, London society had split into distinct camps. The old guard denounced Piers and Georgiana as traitors to their class. But a growing faction, comprised of younger members, reformers, and those who had always disliked Marcus, rallied behind them. Invitations arrived for reformist gatherings, charitable events, lectures on women's education. The Duke of Richmond, known for his progressive views, wrote personally to express support. His wife, the Duchess, requested an audience at Thornby Hall. The Duchess arrived on a crisp April morning, her carriage bearing the Richmond coat of arms. She was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and eyes that had witnessed 5 decades of Tun politics. Georgiana received her nervously, uncertain what to expect from someone of such elevated rank. "Lady Georgiana," the Duchess said warmly, taking both of Georgiana's hands in hers, "I have come to tell you something I wish someone had told me when I was your age. You are not alone, and you are not wrong." The simple declaration made Georgiana's eyes sting with unexpected tears. "I have come," the Duchess continued, settling into the drawing room with the ease of someone accustomed to command, "to tell you that you have more allies than you know. My husband and I believe that reform is coming to England, whether the old guard wishes it or not. The world is changing, women are beginning to speak, men are beginning to listen. You two have become symbols of that change, whether you intended to or not." "We never intended to become symbols of anything," Piers said, entering the room with a tray of tea that he had carried himself, much to the scandal of the hovering footman. "We simply wanted justice." "Justice has a way of becoming revolutionary," the Duchess replied with a knowing smile. "I have watched the Tun for half a century, Lord Piers. I know how it operates, how it protects its own, how it crushes those who threaten the established order. What you two have done, speaking truth about a member of one of England's oldest families, should have destroyed you completely. Yet here you are, still standing. Do you know why?" Georgiana and Piers exchanged glances. "Because we told the truth," Georgiana ventured. "Because you told the truth at exactly the right moment," the Duchess corrected. The ton has been cracking for years. Too many young women forced into loveless marriages. Too many husbands behaving abominably behind closed doors while society turns a blind eye. Too many families valuing reputation over the well-being of their own children. People have been waiting, desperate really, for someone with enough courage and credibility to stand up and say, "Enough." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "My husband and I would like to support you more publicly. Host gatherings at Richmond House. Introduce you to reformers and politicians who can turn social scandal into actual legal change. We have connections in Parliament, relationships with newspaper editors, access to salons where the future of England is genuinely being debated." "Why?" Piers asked bluntly. "What do you gain from associating with us? We are social pariahs in many circles." The Duchess's smile was sharp. "Beyond the satisfaction of irritating hypocrites like Lady Cordelia Ashton, we gain the knowledge that we are on the right side of history. My husband and I have wealth, position, influence, all things that will mean nothing if we do not use them for something meaningful." Her expression softened. "And perhaps if we are very lucky, we gain a world where my 3 granddaughters will not be forced into marriages with men like your brother. A world where they will have choices, protections, voices of their own." Georgiana felt something loosen in her chest. For months, she had felt isolated, fighting a battle that seemed impossibly large. To discover that powerful allies existed, that her struggle mattered to people beyond herself, was overwhelming. "We accept," she said, looking at Piers for confirmation. He nodded. "We accept your support, Your Grace, and we are grateful for it." "Good," the Duchess said briskly. "Then let us begin. I am hosting a salon next month. Poets, philosophers, politicians, progressive thinkers. I want you both there. It is time for London to see you not as scandal, but as substance." They accepted the Duchess's support, and with it came validation from the highest levels of society. The salon at Richmond House in May was unlike anything Georgiana had experienced in the ton. Instead of gossip and social climbing, the conversations centered on ideas: women's education, legal reform, the rights of wives to their own property and earnings. Georgiana found herself drawn into discussions she would never have been permitted to join before. She spoke of her experiences, not in sensational terms but in practical ones. What legal protections might have helped her? What resources might have given her options beyond enduring or fleeing? What education might have prepared her to recognize danger before it was too late? By summer's end, the tide had turned decisively. Marcus's name became shorthand for everything wrong with the old system, proof that charm and breeding meant nothing if character was absent. Several members of Parliament began drafting petitions to give married women more legal protections, citing the Thornby scandal as justification. The legislation would take years, perhaps decades, to fully realize. But the conversation had begun. One evening in late summer, Georgiana sat in Piers's study helping him review correspondence. Letters arrived daily now, some still venomous, but many more expressing support, sharing stories, asking for advice. "We did this," Georgiana said wonderingly, holding a letter from a woman in Yorkshire who had left her abusive husband after reading about Georgiana's courage. "Our pain, our willingness to speak, it is changing things. Slowly, perhaps, but genuinely." "Your courage," Piers corrected, looking up from the petition he was editing. "I simply refuse to let you face it alone." "No," Georgiana said firmly. "Our courage. You gave up your peaceful naval life, destroyed your own reputation, stood beside me when you could have maintained distance and preserved your position. You chose to fight this battle with me. That took courage too." Piers set down his pen and crossed to where she sat by the window. "I would make the same choice 1,000 times over. You have become—" He paused, searching for words. "You have become the most important thing in my life, Georgiana. Not the scandal, not the reforms, not even the satisfaction of justice. You, the woman you are becoming, the strength you are reclaiming. I watch you, and I am in awe." Georgiana reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. 6 months ago, she would have flinched at such contact. Now she sought it, welcomed it, drew strength from it. "I could not have become this woman without you," she said quietly. You gave me the time and space to heal. You never pushed, never demanded, never made me feel that my recovery had to proceed on any timeline but my own. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." Spring came to Devonshire with unexpected gentleness. The wild gardens of Thornby Hall burst into bloom, and Georgiana spent long hours walking the cliff paths with Piers, slowly learning to be comfortable in his presence without fear. They began simply, holding hands during evening walks, sitting close enough on the sofa that their shoulders touched while reading. Piers would play the pianoforte in the music room, a talent Georgiana had not known he possessed, and she would sit nearby, letting the music fill spaces where words seemed insufficient. "My mother taught me," Piers explained one evening when Georgiana complimented his skill. "She said music was the only way she could express what she dared not speak aloud. When she played, she was free." His fingers moved over the keys with surprising grace, for hands so calloused from naval work. The melody was melancholy and beautiful, something Georgiana did not recognize. "What is that piece?" she asked softly, not wanting to break the spell. "Something my mother composed herself. She never named it, never wrote it down. I learned it by watching her play, by memorizing the way her hands moved." Piers's voice was thick with old grief. "After she died, I would come to this room at night and play it over and over, trying to hold on to her somehow. My father hated it, said I was being morbid, that I should put away such maudlin pursuits and focus on becoming a proper gentleman." "What did you do?" Georgiana asked. "I played it louder," Piers said with a ghost of a smile. "And then I joined the Navy as soon as I was old enough, where there were no pianofortes and no one to tell me what proper gentlemen did or did not do." Georgiana moved to sit beside him on the bench. "Will you teach me?" she asked impulsively. "I learned as a girl, but Marcus forbade me to play. He said I had no talent and my efforts were embarrassing. He said many things designed to make me smaller, quieter, less." Rage flickered across Piers's face, the same rage that always appeared when Marcus's cruelty was discussed, but he controlled it, channeling it into determination instead. "You will play again," he said fiercely, "and I will hear no criticism of your efforts, only appreciation for your courage in reclaiming what was stolen from you." So began Georgiana's reclamation of simple joys. Music lessons in the evening, Piers's hands gently correcting her finger placement, his patience infinite when she fumbled or grew frustrated with herself. Horseback riding, Piers taking her to the wild Devon coast at dawn, where they could gallop along the beach without society's eyes upon them, the salt spray and crashing waves drowning out the voices in her head that still sometimes whispered Marcus's criticisms. Reading aloud to each other in the library, discovering shared tastes in poetry and philosophy, sailing in small boats around the harbour, Piers teaching her the names of sails and knots and stars used for navigation, his face alight with a joy she had never seen in him before. "This is what I missed most," Piers confessed one evening as they sailed back toward Thornby Hall at sunset, the sky painted in shades of gold and rose. Not the adventure or the danger or the glory of naval service. This, the simple pleasure of being on the water, watching the light change, feeling the wind. "I thought I would never find this peace on land. I thought the sea would always be my only refuge." "And now?" Georgiana asked, one hand on the tiller as he had taught her, the other shading her eyes against the setting sun. "Now, I find that peace can exist in unexpected places," Piers said quietly, his gaze on her rather than the horizon. "With unexpected people." With each recovered pleasure, Georgiana felt more of herself returning. The woman she had been before Marcus, before fear, before learned helplessness. She was not the same person she had been at 19. That girl was gone forever, innocence irretrievable. But perhaps she could become someone better, someone who had survived the fire and emerged tempered rather than broken, someone stronger. The first time Piers kissed her, it was at her instigation. They were in the garden at twilight, spring flowers releasing their evening scent, when Georgiana simply turned to him and said, "I think I would like you to kiss me now." Piers froze, clearly startled. "Are you certain?" "Yes." And she was. She wanted to reclaim this too. The ability to experience a kiss without terror, to feel a man's lips on hers and know pleasure instead of pain, to choose intimacy rather than have it forced upon her. He was so careful. His hands cupped her face gently, his lips barely brushing hers, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she did not, when she leaned into the kiss instead, he deepened it only slightly, keeping it tender rather than demanding. When they parted, Georgiana was shaking, but not from fear, from wonder, from the revelation that physical affection did not have to hurt, did not have to be transactional or violent or demeaning. "How do you feel?" Piers asked, his thumb stroking her cheek with such gentleness that tears pricked her eyes. "Strange," Georgiana admitted. "Good strange. I felt safe. Even in that moment of vulnerability, I felt safe with you." "Good," Piers said fiercely, pulling her close in an embrace that asked for nothing, that simply offered warmth and protection. "You should always feel safe with me, in every moment, in every circumstance. That is the foundation of everything else." They took their time. Weeks passed before Georgiana felt ready to invite Piers into her bedchamber beyond the sitting room. Months before, she could imagine true intimacy without panic threatening to overwhelm her. But Piers never complained, never pressed, never suggested that her pace was too slow or his patience wearing thin. "I lived 8 years at sea without a woman's touch," he said once, when Georgiana apologized for her hesitation, her fear that she was being unfair to him. "I can wait as long as you need. What we are building, trust, understanding, genuine partnership, that is worth more than physical satisfaction could ever be." One evening in late spring, after months of gradual healing, Georgiana invited Piers to stay in her chambers. Not in the chair by the fire, not on the sofa, but in her bed, in her arms, in the most complete intimacy they had yet shared. "Are you certain?" Piers asked, as he had asked every time. "There is no rush." "I am certain," Georgiana said. "I want this, I want you. And I want to reclaim this part of myself too." What passed between them that night was nothing like what Georgiana had known with Marcus. It was gentle where Marcus had been rough, patient where he had been demanding. Piers treated her like something precious, something to be cherished rather than used. He whispered praise instead of criticism, asked permission instead of assuming rights, stopped immediately when she tensed, and held her until the fear passed. Afterwards, lying in the circle of his arms, Georgiana felt something shift fundamentally inside her. The last chains Marcus had wrapped around her heart shattered, leaving her free. "I love you," she said, and felt no fear in the admission. "I love you, Piers Thornby. Not because I must, not because you saved me, but because you showed me who I could become. Because you were patient when I needed patience, strong when I needed strength, and gentle when gentleness seemed impossible. I love you." Piers's arms tightened around her, and she felt wetness against her hair. "I have waited so long to hear you say that without fear in your voice. I love you, Georgiana, my wife, my partner, my heart." They lay together as dawn crept through the windows, two wounded souls who had found unexpected healing in each other. A home, a sanctuary, a love built not on passion or circumstance, but on the deliberate daily choice to be kind, to be honest, to be present for each other no matter what storms might come. In October, a letter arrived from Viscount Hartley, the young man who had killed Marcus in the duel. "Lord and Lady Thornby, I have followed with great interest the revelations about Marcus Thornby's character. For 3 years, I have carried crushing guilt over taking a man's life. Society called me a murderer. Now I understand the truth, that I did not murder a gentleman but put down a monster. I write to ask if you would be willing to meet with me. I would like to hear the full story and perhaps finally put this chapter to rest." They invited him to Thornby Hall. He arrived in November, a serious young man of 23 carrying the weight of too much pain for his years. "Thank you for seeing me," Hartley said, voice strained. "I know you have no reason to grant me audience." "On the contrary," Georgiana replied gently. "You freed me from a nightmare, Lord Hartley. I owe you more than I can ever repay." "You owe me nothing. I killed a man." "You killed my abuser," Georgiana interrupted. There is a difference. You did nothing wrong. You fought with honor when Marcus fought with treachery. You survived when he intended murder. You should carry no guilt for his death." Tears spilled down Hartley's face. "For 3 years, I have woken screaming, seeing his face as he fell. I thought I was a killer." "You are not a killer," Piers said firmly. "You are a young man who defended himself against a predator. Marcus provoked that duel intending to murder you. Your survival was not murder, it was justice." They talked for hours, Georgiana sharing carefully selected details, Piers explaining what they had found. By the time Hartley departed the next day, he stood straighter, the crushing weight of guilt visibly lifted. "You have given me my life back," he said. "I hope someday I can repay that gift." "Live well," Georgiana told him. "Fight for the reforms we are trying to achieve. Teach other young men that honor is not about defending one's reputation at all costs, but about treating others with genuine respect. That is repayment enough." After Hartley left, Georgiana and Piers walked the cliff paths they had come to love, the November wind bracing and cold. "That is everyone, I think," Georgiana said. "Everyone Marcus directly hurt has now had their voice heard, their pain acknowledged. We have spoken our truths, and the world has listened." "Does it feel like closure?" Piers asked. Georgiana considered seriously. "It feels like justice. Not the dramatic justice of novels, but the quiet, grinding justice of changing minds, one conversation at a time. It feels like I have taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and transformed it into something that might prevent the same suffering for others." "You are extraordinary," Piers said, pulling her close. "Do you know that? You could have been broken by what Marcus did. Instead, you became stronger than he ever imagined possible." "I had help," Georgiana reminded him, leaning into his warmth. "I had a husband who saw my worth when I could not see it myself, who gave me time and space to heal, who destroyed his own reputation to protect mine. Perhaps we needed each other," Piers suggested. "I needed someone to fight for, something to believe in beyond duty and escape. You gave me purpose." They stood together on the cliffs overlooking the sea, two people who had been forced together by circumstance and had chosen to stay together by love. 3 years had passed since the forced marriage that neither had wanted, but both had come to treasure. Thornby Hall, once a monument to cruelty, had become famous throughout England as a place of healing and reform. The Thornby Fund for Women's Independence had helped over 200 women leave dangerous situations. The legislation Georgiana had helped champion, petitions for married women's legal rights, had begun their long journey through Parliament. And in the nursery of the West Wing, 2-year-old Eleanor Thornby and her infant brother Thomas slept peacefully, watched over by devoted parents who had vowed their children would never know the violence that had defined previous generations. Georgiana stood in the doorway, watching her daughter sleep, still marveling that she had created this life. A life she had once been too terrified to imagine. "You need rest," Piers said softly, coming to stand beside her. "You have been awake since dawn." "I know. I simply cannot stop watching them, cannot stop feeling grateful that they exist, that I exist to see them, that we created this from something that should have destroyed me." Piers wrapped his arm around her waist. "You know what I think when I look at them?" "What?" "I think Marcus did not win. For all his cruelty, for all the pain he caused, he did not break you. You survived, you healed, you built something beautiful from the ashes of what he tried to destroy. And our children will grow up knowing that love is gentle, that marriage is partnership, that strength comes from kindness rather than control. That is the most complete victory possible." Georgiana turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had become her anchor, her partner, her deepest love. "Do you ever regret it? The scandal, the social ostracism, the years spent fighting rather than simply living quietly?" "Never," Piers said without hesitation. "We changed things, Georgiana. Not everything, not enough, but something. And we did it together. That is all I have ever wanted, to matter, to make a difference, to stand beside someone who shares my values and my courage." "We gave it to each other," Georgiana corrected, reaching up to cup his face. The face that had once terrified her because it resembled Marcus's, but which she now saw as entirely its own. kind where Marcus had been cruel, open where Marcus had been calculating, honest where Marcus had been treacherous. That night, as they lay together in the bed they now shared every night, Georgiana thought about the girl she had been, broken, terrified, certain she would never know happiness. She thought about the woman she had become, strong, purposeful, deeply loved and loving in return. The journey between those two selves had been longer and harder than any journey she could have imagined, but it had been worth every difficult step. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "Thank you for giving me time to learn how." "I love you," Piers replied, his arms tightening around her. "Thank you for teaching me that some things are worth staying on land for." Outside, the autumn wind sang through the cliffs of Devonshire, the sea meeting the land in eternal rhythm. Inside Thornby Hall, two souls who had been forced together by a dying man's ultimatum slept peacefully, no longer bound by circumstance or obligation, bound instead by choice, by love, by the daily decision to be better than the legacy they had inherited. And that, Georgiana thought as sleep claimed her, was the greatest freedom of all. Dear listener, sometimes the universe takes our plans and shatters them completely. The life we thought we would live becomes impossible, and we are forced to choose new paths we never wanted to walk. Like Georgiana, you may find yourself trapped in a situation that feels impossible to escape. You may be bound by circumstances that seem to leave you no choices, no freedom, no hope. But remember, being forced into a situation is not the same as being defeated by it. Within even the most restrictive circumstances, there exist small choices, small moments of resistance, small decisions that, accumulated over time, transform prisons into doorways. You are not defined by what others have done to you, not by their cruelty, not by their dismissal of your worth, not by the narratives they have written about who you are supposed to be. Like Georgiana, you have the power to reclaim your own story, to speak your truth even when the world tries to silence you, to build something beautiful from the wreckage of what was taken from you. And if you are fortunate enough to find a partner who sees your true worth, who offers patience instead of demands, respect instead of control, genuine partnership instead of ownership, hold on to that precious gift. Real love is not about possession or power. It is about two people choosing each other every single day with full knowledge of each other's wounds and full commitment to honoring them. Tonight, know that you are stronger than you believe, that your past does not limit your future, that healing is possible, even when it seems impossibly far away, and that you deserve love that builds you up rather than tears you down, that celebrates your strength rather than exploits your vulnerability. Rest well, dear listener. Tomorrow brings new possibilities that you cannot yet imagine. Thank you for joining us on Georgiana and Piers' journey from forced arrangement to genuine love. If this story of survival, healing, and unexpected partnership moved your heart, please subscribe and share with others who need to hear that transformation is always possible. Your support helps us continue creating stories that honor resilience and celebrate the courage it takes to reclaim your life. Until our next tale, may you recognize your own worth and the genuine love you deserve.